Just fucking do it. Subscribe now. General questions or any kind of question. Yeah, Doc.
The company that we form, is it a S Corp?
Doesn't matter. Well, that's not true. It matters. Sometimes he's going to be in the United States, so he's asking about the United States. S Corp, C Corp. The flavor of the day right now is LLC, limited liability company. But then some of the limited liability companies have to be changing to S Corps. It really, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But when you're recruiting your accountants, lawyers, et cetera, and they're going to ask, what's your end game? But a lot of your end games, or not a lot, almost all of your end games are going to change. You heard our Aussie friend say yesterday, the original plan will change. His changed, I think he said 20 times. And he just wrote me an email, and I'll read parts of it when they print it out and bring it to me, about he's starting to build the model to sell. And I told you it takes about a year to sell. If you're going to do it right, you're not going to get beat up, and somebody's not going to do to you like you're going to do to them, vis-a-vis due diligence. And so I may have misread it because I read it really quickly. But his revenue is 110 million now, or it will be. And so he's getting ready to sell. But he's changed at least 3 times that I can remember the kind of company he had. Of course, he was in Australia, Jason Nagy. So it varies. It depends. It depends. Yes, sir.
Definitely Wyoming, Nevada, and Delaware.
Oh, you mean to incorporate him? Okay. In the last 10 or 15 years, Nevada, Wyoming, the Delaware has been around for a jillion years. I'd like to see you, as I said, I believe yesterday and one time before that, I'd like to see you be in a right-to-work state, if at all possible, so you can fire Sweet Pea if she puts on her skirt crooked. Okay? That's an exaggeration, but back in the day when I was your age, they used to wear stockings still, that you hooked with a garter or something like that. And there used to be like a line in the stocking in the back, a seam. And I saw guys fire girls because the seam was crooked. In the good old days, the way it should be. But I'd rather see you in a right-to-work state, and there's 6 or 7 of them. And if you can combine the right-to-work state with the right law, Wyoming, Nevada, etc. But the most important thing is, in my judgment, is to get corporate law. Second most important is to be in a right-to-work state. Some of you, it won't make sense, like, for example, to be in... You don't have to be in the state. All you have to do is incorporate in the state. So there are 4 or 5 countries. There's 4 or 5 states that you shouldn't be incorporated in. Come hell or high water, it's better to be incorporated in Panama because the corporate law, and your lawyers will know this, the corporate law is so in favor of the other side. Remember, all the documents you're getting written up, incorporation papers, etc., articles, are in your favor. And when you tell the lawyers, I want them to be in favor of the largest shareholder, which is you. Because when you go down the road and when we go downtown, which means when we go to court, I want everything to be leaning your way. Leaning your way. Answer your question? Okay. Yes, sir.
So if I'm going to be in Michigan or Arizona, it doesn't matter where I am, but you would prefer me to incorporate in Nevada or Wyoming?
And I just thought of a joke about Michigan. They call it Yoopers, or the Yoopers. Madonna's got a house up there, but that's about it. And the Youpers are the ones that the girls weigh about 300 pounds because back in the day, they were there when they settled that part of the country. It was so cold. Buffalo right now, which is a great city for sports and stuff, but I mean, it's under 100 centimeters of snow, if I heard him correctly. That's a lot of goddamn snow. So much for global warming. But your answer to your question is yes. Wyoming to be closest, Nevada is not bad, but you'd be incorporated in one of those two states up there. You could be incorporated in Delaware, too. But all these dominoes that I've got, if they fall, when they fall, they're going to fall your way. To the extent, and this is part of the steps. You know, you want to form your entity, little entity in the beginning, in your favor. And again, you'll get some some complaints. Your in-house lawyer may tell you, he won't say it's not constitutional because it is constitutional, but he'll say, this isn't current with the spirit of the law in the 21st century. I remember that now. Last year, some asshole told me. It's not in the spirit of the law in the 21st century. And my retort was, well, the spirit of the law, if we were in Caesar's time, I'd cut your fucking tongue out. Okay, we skipped Ballmer yesterday. I skipped him, so I'll bring it up now. I don't want to cut you short, but he doesn't know anything about software. He can't write code. Blah, blah, blah. The only thing he knows how to do is sell, and he's alpha male. And the comment he made before he spoke at Oxford, I spoke at Oxford myself. He was nervous because he knew it was going to be on YouTube forever. And probably, I don't know him personally, but the people that I know that know him, it's probably the first time he ever talked for 40, 50 minutes without saying fuck. Because almost everybody except me is worried about the legacy vis-a-vis social media. But we don't read the cases now, but we have slides that show that when he's been in court and people have testified against Microsoft when he was a senior person at Microsoft, that he talks about ripping the testicles out and shoving down the guy's, I believe it was the CEO of AT&T at the time, shoving it down his wife's throat. He got testimony. This is discovery. And so when I haven't listened to him in Oxford in a while, but when he's nice and he can't stand still and he jumps up and down. And normally he perspires like crazy because he's enthusiastic. One of the things that I say at the close today, but I'm going to say now while I'm thinking about, most of you look like you just came from, or most of you sound like you just came from your mother's funeral. I mean, other than him bursting out a couple of days ago, there's no enthusiasm in you. Now, I'm giving you, and I don't like to give you benefit of the doubt. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. You're trying to be polite and, you're in my house. But that's all horseshit, okay? If you were really enthusiastic, it would have come out by now. Now, if what you've been doing is your enthusiasm, you got a big fucking problem with this model. You're going to fail. I'm just going to flat ass tell you. You don't have a fucking ghost chance. You heard Peter say, and I don't consider Peter, with the greatest respect, very enthusiastic to me, but he said I sold with enthusiasm. And I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that he feels more comfortable speaking Hungarian, so he's more inclined to sound enthusiastic. But if you're not enthusiastic, guys, you're going to have a problem because most of you will be considered at the young end of the continuum. With that description, young, inexperienced, naive, don't know shit. All those come with in the same sentence. So you've got to somehow overcome that. Now, not like I did, having my hummingbird ass overloaded, my alligator mouth overloading my hummingbird ass. But, you've got to be enthusiastic because that's all you've got. For 2 or 3 of you that are going to go into an industry that you think you know something about, which I tell you not to, but some of you are still going to do that. your default. Well, you'll go into something that you have been in and you've made money in, or you've tried to make money in, and you don't have to learn new jargon or vocabulary. There's only 25 or 30 phrases or words that you need to learn to be a billionaire. That's it. And nobody believes me, and I've said this 2 or 3 times. I didn't know enough to fill the end of a pin about oil and gas when I started. There's a famous story, which happens to be true, about halfway through my tenure as a CEO of a public company, we were making a presentation to the American Petroleum Institute, which is kind of the Valhalla of the oil and gas business. And our chief engineer, Jimmy Ford, we had planes in those days, got caught in a snowstorm and he didn't make it. And so in those days, there were no PowerPoint presentations. There were charts, a cardboard kind of charts that you carried in a kind of like a big briefcase. And I said, well, bless you, we're not going to wait for Jimmy. I'll give the presentation myself. Thank you. And so I got up there and I gave about 25 or 30 minutes into the presentation, and Jimmy shows up. I could see him at the back of the hall, and he's trying to get me to stop talking. I didn't. And so then I get to the flip chart about the oil and gas reserves that we expect. And there's proved producing reserves, there's proved reserves, and then there's unproved reserves. And the unproved reserves don't mean shit. The only reserves that really you value anything on are the proved producing. It's coming out of the ground, oil and gas, and you're capturing it at the top, and then you're transporting it and you're selling it. And so he's going like this. So I'm trying to figure out what the fuck he's talking about, but I didn't. And what he was trying to say was, oil and gas come up the same hole. And I didn't know that. Oil and gas come up the same hole. Later on, I learned that come up the same hole. There's a separator on the top that separates the gas, or they burn off the gas, and it captures the oil, or the condensate, as it's called. And I go through the presentation, and we stop for question. It's Q&A, and he comes up and grabs me by the arm, and he said, Dan, we got to go. And anyway, so on the way to the airport, the plane, he tells me this. I start laughing like hell. And he says, Danny, did you know that the charts were upside down? What? All the wiggly lines and shit were upside down. The American Petroleum Institute, 300 or 400 of the smartest oil and gas guys on the motherfucking planet, didn't notice the charts were upside down. When I tell you don't have to know a goddamn thing from the bottom of where my heart's supposed to be, I'm telling you the truth. And Jimmy was afraid that they're going to start asking questions about, well, can you go back to chart 13? They were upside down. I put them upside down. They all fucking looked the same to me because we didn't have this kind of thing on the bottom. See that? Then we started making charts with a thing on the bottom so I knew where the bottom was. I probably raised $400 or $500 million in that group that wanted to invest with us. And then when Landsat came out, which was searching for hydrocarbons from land satellites, and nobody knew anything about that. That was my specialty, because then I could say any fucking thing I wanted. You're worrying about the wrong things. Nobody asks you shit. And then occasionally, when you ask a question, and you're in a group, you just point to the CFO, you just point to the industry expert, or you just point, and then they take it. And you need to tell your board that if there's any group presentations, Sally will take that, or John, because you're not going to be able to answer too many questions, if at all, in the beginning, and that'll make you nervous. That's the fear factor. And Andrew alluded to the fear factor because, you're talking about things you don't know anything about. And in the beginning, he didn't know a goddamn thing about home health or assisted living. Now he's the CEO under 40 of the year in less than 3 years. Now, given that maybe he's smarter than you, maybe you won't be the CEO of the year in 3 years, but I mean, and there is a distinct bit of jealousy now that didn't exist 15 years ago. because young kids, journalists, analysts, bankers are about the age of the average age, in this group I think it's 32 or 33, and they'll be jealous that numbnuts here or a sweetie pie here is going to, if this thing comes to fruition, she's going to make 10, 15 million bucks. And even though, everybody is rah-rah, kumbaya, they don't really feel that way. They'll, and you'll be naive. You'll be sucked into their Venus trap, thinking, oh, God, they really are happy for me. And all they're looking for is not necessarily cut your throat, but make you look dumb. And so that's why, like in politics, I only have 6 bullet points. I don't give a fuck what the question is. It's one of those 6. And you'll learn, for QLA, there's 25 or 30, depending on what industry you go into. And that's going to be your repertoire. That's going to be your quiver that holds your arrows. You've got 25 to 30 arrows in there, and that's it. And that's it. And for those of you, i.e., like the doctor in the back, he'll know too much. He'll want to pontificate, maybe not necessarily show how smart he is, but he'll over-answer. And that'll turn out poorly. Another question. Yes, sir.
The most disgusting part of the presentation was what the interviewer said in closing. He said to the audience, I hope you were able to glean something from this that we couldn't possibly teach you. Well, that's the fucking problem.
That's absolutely correct. And he was at Oxford, and there's a lot of smart kids. And Kat and EJ were with me at Oxford, if you remember back that many years. And the one of my mentees, who had gone to the seminar, who was, I think he was a senior then, and they were very nice to us. They're always nice to us at these schools. I mean, even when we were earlier this year, when I was picketed and the girls got naked in the auditorium to picket me speaking, and the police came and all kinds of shit. They were so nice, and the police or the security didn't know how to grab the girls that got naked to get them out of okay? And so, and if that had happened in New York, they'd grab them by the tit and drag them out the fucking door, up the staircase. But in England, they, don't you want to leave? And so they had to convince them, cajole them into wanting to leave and allow me to finish my talk. But the schools, Oxford included, don't teach you anything. I mean, that you can use. Unless you're going to be a professor or, you take English lit. Our daughter, her undergraduate degree is in colonial history from 1751 to 1822 or something. Well, you can use that to wipe your ass with. I mean, and then she decides she doesn't want to be a teacher because she doesn't like kids. Anyway, so then she went to graduate school. She didn't learn much in graduate school either. But you're absolutely correct. Anything else about Ballmer? Yes, sir.
So kind of in line, not only with the Ballmer video, but everything really goes back to the fundamentals, which then the fundamentals take me back to QLA steps. We stay along that, and like you said, have some kind of speaking skills or presentation skills. Because for me, listening to Ballmer, I thought he sounded like a goofy fucker.
He is a goofy fucker.
Just not clean or, smooth or anything. It was just kind of like a big jolly old giant.
But he's a hammer closer, like I am. He doesn't leave until you say yes. Now, I mean, in the PC world, boy, that's verboten. You're not supposed. That's bordering on being a bully, which is my specialty. And in the last 15 years, at least, the last thing you want to be considered is a bully by conventional wisdom. But conventional wisdom is not wisdom; it's just conventional. And all those people that are saying that are poor. Again, money's not everything, but it's the only thing anybody keeps track of. And then you can use your money to go, do Greenpeace and all that stuff. That's fine. But the people that are running around in this country, they call them placards around embassies What the fuck are they doing? No good. Or so small or marginal bit of good that it doesn't make sense. A couple years ago, in front of one of the schools, I asked the audience if I could prove to you that if we stopped today and all the things that Greenpeace, every single measure known to man that's ever been mentioned to stop climate change, today we stop. In 500 years, the planet still be fucked up. And so some girl back in the middle of the road, we wouldn't be marching. We're not going to be around in 500 years because they don't really care when they're not here 50 generations from now. Okay, let's skip to Andrew, my virtual mentor that you saw last night, who, with all the good he's done, he's not gotten one award, not one honorable mention, not one kiss your ass or kiss my ass. And he started, 1,500, 1,800 libraries, universities, schools. 50 miles south of here, you can't hardly go someplace down there near Dunfermline without his name on something. Arguably then, when he took the 450 million or whatever. Is it a coincidence that I grew my dynasty, as it's called, to 450 million, and Carnegie sold to J.P. Morgan for 450 million? Is it a coincidence that one of my lead law firms was the first lawyer for Mr. Carnegie? Is it a coincidence, the slide I show you, Skibo estate and my estate? I don't think so. But comments about Mr. Carnegie. Yes, Doc.
He took initiative at an early age when he was working with, I believe, Thomas Scott and...
Who he fucked. That's the whole point of the whole fucking movie. The guy that helped him out, right? He stepped on his head and drowned him. That's the world I live in. That's the world I've exceeded in. That's the world I've taught guys like the Goomba brothers, which were easier to teach because they would step on your head to drown you anyway. But I mean, that's the world that I don't like to say try. I show you how to succeed in, which is the antithesis of everything, almost everything that you've learned heretofore. Not everything, but almost everything. That's the whole movie. That's the whole essence of the movie. Never underestimate how wrong you can be. I'm sure he thought that Andrew was going to do a solid by him. No. And for those of you that accept that, and for some of you that's a bitter pill to swallow. For those of you that accept that the fastest, the better off you'll be. And you won't be in the 7-8 year category of using QLA successfully. You'll be in the, 20 to 30, 35 month category. He is the culmination, and he didn't know anything about the business either. All he grasped early on is that he didn't want equity injections. They didn't call them equity injections in those days. He didn't want financial partners because he had to split up the equity. And hence he used commercial debt. They did have seller finance then, but it wasn't utilized because when you sold somebody a farm or this and that, a lot of things could go wrong, i.e. the weather, and so you may or may not have been able to fulfill the seller's note. Seller's note. Now, goodbye, YouTube.